Hello and welcome to the webinar. I'm Brandi Lyndall, Assistant Director and College Counselor at the Gulf Coast Gets College Center. With me today is Catherine Box, Associate Director of Admissions and College Counseling at Woodbury Forest School in Virginia. You may be familiar with Catherine since she previously worked at Millsaps College as the Director of Admissions. Before we begin the webinar, I'd like to share a few housekeeping details. We are recording today's webinar and we'll send a link to everyone who registered online. If you're watching this recording, today's date is March 22nd, 2018, and the information we're covering is current for the 2018-2019 school year. Get to College is a nonprofit program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. We have 3 centers throughout Mississippi, in Jackson, Ocean Springs, and South Haven. Our centers help students to plan for college and financial aid. We make personalized appointments for students to apply for admission and scholarships, to file FAFSA and state aid applications. We even help with essay writing and interviewing skills. But best of all, everything we do is absolutely free. During the webinar, we will not be able to see or hear you, but you can chat your questions through instant message. Our Gulf Coast Gets College Center counselors, Kimberly Trosclair and Joshua Thompson, will be monitoring our chat. If you have questions about the material, I encourage you to use the Q&A section. If you have technical difficulties, you should use the chat box. And without further ado, let me begin the webinar on selective college and admission or scholarships. Today we're going to cover the difference between selective college admissions and regular admissions to college. When you think about selective college admissions, they are competitive programs. Whether your students are applying for admission to a selective college or are trying to receive a competitive scholarship, it's based on the student's whole application, not just their test scores and GPA. We encourage students who are considering selective colleges to use the 2 + 2 + 2 rule. Basically, that means 2 reach schools. Students should apply to at least 2 reach schools. When you think about a reach school, I tell students, I don't know that I can get in and I don't know that I can afford it, but I'm going to give it my best shot. 2 likely schools. I most likely can get in, I can most likely afford it. And 2 matches. I know I can get in, I know I can afford it. This allows students to broaden their opportunities and of course not put all their hopes and dreams in one school, because what if they don't get in and what if they don't receive enough money? So they need options, and this allows them to broaden their opportunities. We have several college tours that come through Mississippi, or I should say near Mississippi. Exploring College Options and the Coast to Coast Tour are tours where selective and Ivy League colleges will come through and tour the Southeast. You can find all the information for students to register for these tours online. They have a guidance counselor breakfast. They have meetings where students and parents can come in the evening. But basically, schools such as Stanford and Georgetown, Dartmouth, travel around the country together, and your student is able to meet these colleges near their hometown. I know that these tours do come through Jackson, Mississippi. However, if you are on the coast, like me in Ocean Springs, your nearest tour would be in Mobile, Alabama, or New Orleans, Louisiana. If you're in North Mississippi, your best bet would be Memphis. So tell your students that are looking at highly selective schools that these tours would be a great opportunity to get in front of these schools near their hometown. It's important that your students and parents do research about the colleges that they're considering. One way to look at a highly selective school is their acceptance rate, the amount of students that they accept yearly. Obviously, the lower the school's acceptance rate, the more selective the school is. They should also look at the middle 50%. The middle 50% of test scores is what I mean. So for example, your students know their ACT and SAT scores. So they need to find a college where their test scores are within the middle 50%. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Colleges also have special programs. So for example, here in Mississippi at the University of Mississippi, they have the Trent Lott Leadership Program, they have the Croft Institute, and honors programs. So maybe you have students that are looking at highly selective schools, but they should also be considering these competitive special programs here in Mississippi. And the application process is honestly very similar. It's always important for every student looking to go to college to visit campus. And if they are looking at a school outside of the Southeast, it's imperative that they visit. For example, if a student is looking at Bowdoin College, one of the most selective liberal arts colleges in the country, it's in Maine. And the student needs to know that they would be happy at a school that far away. And they need to visit in February. Not in the summer when it's 100 degrees here in Mississippi and 70 degrees in Maine. They need to visit during a time when they will actually be there to make sure that they're happy at the school and that it is all the expectations that the perception that they have is correct about the college. They need to know that they feel safe walking from the residence hall to the library at night. How does the food taste? Where do I do my laundry? Where do I park my car? And the only way for students to really find out what it's truly like at a college is frankly to visit. Now, colleges come in different sizes, colors, price tags, and so it's important for students to think about how large of a school they want to attend. What type of student-faculty ratio are they looking for? And it is important that students think about what is a good fit for them, not the best place for your friend or your boyfriend or girlfriend or where your parents went, but what type of school is the best fit for the student. And then of course, affordability. Colleges cost varying amounts. We will ultimately talk about money at the end of the webinar, but it's definitely something to consider for students. Not only can they get in, but will they be able to afford it? That's a very important piece when looking at colleges. Here's a good example of what I was talking about earlier when it comes to acceptance rate and the middle 50% on the ACT. So Harvard University, our flagship college, the first college in the country to be founded, is by far our most selective college. 5% of the students are admitted to Harvard. And you can see their middle 50%. That means 50% of their applicants admitted had a 32 to a 35 on the ACT. You can see the same example with Brown, Vanderbilt, and Tulane. And a lot of students think that for selective colleges, for colleges to be selective, they must be private colleges. That's not necessarily true. We do have a few public colleges that are equally selective. Here in the South, we have the University of Virginia, probably one of the most selective public colleges. And then, of course, we have the University of Florida as well. So college students need to do that type of research, that just because the student college is public doesn't necessarily mean that it's not selective. And I did find all of this information under the National Center for Educational Statistics. If you just Google College Navigator, that will come up, and they'll be able to do research about all the colleges across the country. And it's a good tool for them to start forming their application list. Now, a lot of students ask questions about the ACT and the SAT. As you know, Mississippi is an ACT state. Most of our students here in Mississippi take the ACT, and of course, the state pays for every junior to take the ACT. But you may have a student who may do better on the SAT. So for example, if you have a 10th or 11th grader who takes the PSAT, the pre-SAT, and scores high, they may be better suited for the SAT. They are different tests. They test differently. They have different categories and percentages when it comes to how they are graded. But I definitely think that you may have some students that are more suited for the SAT than the ACT. And it certainly wouldn't help them or hurt them to take either or both when it comes to college admissions. Now I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Box. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and she is going to share her screen with you.
Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you apply to more selective colleges and universities. If you haven't heard of it before, there's an application option called the Common Application, or commonly referred to as the Common App, and you can see the website noted on the slide. Feel free to check it out. It's just what it sounds like. It's a way to apply to many colleges at the same time using one common application. So when you fill out the Common Application, you can actually create a profile as early as right now if you have a student who's maybe a junior who's interested. And what's great about it is that students can fill out all of their demographic information, activities and honors, all of the pieces of the application that many times take up a good bit of time, and fill it out once and then submit it to multiple colleges and universities. There are over 750 members right now. In the state of Mississippi, there are 2 Common App schools, Millsaps and University of Southern Mississippi. And then in Alabama, there are schools ranging from Birmingham Southern and Spring Hill to UAB. So publics and privates are members of this Common App coalition. Once a student fills out that information, some colleges and universities will also require a supplement. And that supplement could range from a couple questions about maybe why you're interested in applying to Birmingham Southern to an additional essay, maybe a requirement. So it's really important for students using the Common App to look ahead and really research what the various requirements are at different colleges and universities. The Common App will help you stay organized in terms of institutionally specific requirements, and help you stay organized with application fees and that sort of thing as well. As you can see, you may be required also to write an additional writing supplement or submit an art supplement, something additional of that nature. And usually those requirements will be spelled out on the college or university website. If you have students who are applying to Common App schools, the essay prompts for the 2018-2019 year are already available. So a student could create a Common App account as early as today and work on an essay over the summer. So it's a great way to plan ahead. There are some other Common App type consortiums available to students today. There's a new competitor called the Coalition App. The Coalition App has fewer members and is quite comprehensive. If you were to put the Common App next to maybe an Ole Miss application, for example, you would notice that there's maybe a little bit more breadth to the application. There are more questions. It's asking for more information due to maybe a more holistic review at selective colleges and universities. The Coalition App is even more in-depth. It's quite lengthy, so students will want to carve out a good amount of time. Coalition App schools today range from Brown and Columbia to Clemson and Florida State, so again, both public and private institutions. I will share a piece of personal advice, maybe not professionally accepted across the field. If you have a student who's applying to a school that accepts both the Coalition App and then maybe an institutionally specific application. So for example, if a student is applying to Clemson and has the option to apply via the Coalition App or a Clemson application, I would recommend taking the Clemson route or maybe even the Common App. It's just a little bit more lengthy. There's also the Universal App, which only has about 23 members. Many of the Ivy Leagues are on the Universal App. And then there's another application process called QuestBridge. You can go online and see the member institutions. There are 40 college partners in partner with with the QuestBridge program. The way that students apply for QuestBridge, one, they can be recommended by you, so you could refer a student. Typically, it's a high-achieving, high-need student who fits the profile for the QuestBridge process. The student will apply to become part of the process and then rank schools that they're interested in, and then hopefully they get admitted to one of their top choices, and it typically offers a full ride to that institution. So that's a great opportunity to know about. Those partners are all very selective schools. So I think one of the most complicated pieces of the selective college admission process are the various application plans. So we'll talk a little bit about two categories, non-restrictive and restrictive. Non-restrictive options include regular admission, which is going to be just how a student would regularly apply to an institution. So deadlines could range from early in December, I've seen this year, to after the holidays. And students will typically be notified by April 1st. Rolling admissions is just what it sounds like. As a student applies to an institution, the institution will then roll out decisions accordingly. So for example, Wake Forest this year actually offered for early decision applicants, which we'll talk about in a minute. They offer decision every 2 weeks. So it's really nice if an institution offers that. That means that students don't have to wait a couple of months before they receive their decisions. Early action sounds, again, just like what it sounds like. Early action means that the institution is going to take early action on that file. So if you apply early to an institution, you may get a decision earlier. Early action deadlines for application range anywhere from around October 15th to early December. Something to pay attention to when talking about early action and regular admission is that some institutions have different admit rates when it comes to these different admission plans. So you may want to do some research, have your student do some research and look in to see if it's more advantageous to apply early rather than regular. Brandi was just talking about UVA a minute ago, and it's just down the road from me here at Woodbury Forest. And many of our students apply there, and there's a misconception that applying early there means that you have a bit of advantage in the process. Their admit rate is actually the same, and they have two application plans just so that they can get through the bulk of applications that they receive every year. It'll be different at some other places like Vanderbilt, where students have an advantage early. So it's a bit complicated, but just paying attention to the information from each school will be helpful in guiding your student through which application plan fits best. The restrictive application plans are a bit more complicated. Early decision means that it's a binding agreement. If you apply early decision someplace, then you are bound to attend that institution. So you will have to sign that agreement as a counselor. A parent will have to sign that agreement, and the student as well. And they're saying that if they're admitted, they agree to attend. So the caveat there is that means that the student has to know, by and large, that it's number one choice. It also means that the financial piece needs to be in place. Sometimes in fine print, it will say that you're released from that early decision obligation if the financial aid package doesn't work out for the family. However, it's best practice to consider fit in all ways before taking that route in the application process. So typically, early decision is the right fit for a student who knows 100% it's where he or she would like to go, and again, the financial piece is in place as well. What's great about early decision, though, is the student can apply early decision expressing that interest at that institution, but maybe apply early action other places. So you can still put an application to other institutions. Restrictive early action is the most restrictive application plan out there. And that's typically held by some of the Ivy League institutions. Restrictive early action, or REA, means that you can only apply early action to one institution. So you can only put in one application early, and if you want to put in applications other places, you have to wait and apply regular decision. Typically that means that, again, you're demonstrating interest, you're showing that you really want to attend that institution. Results may be a little bit more favorable if you apply REA to a very selective school. However, if you have a very talented student and they apply REA to a school, it means that they may be eliminating opportunities to apply for merit scholarships. As we see at some selective schools, merit scholarships deadlines are often coupled with early action deadlines. So know that your student will be in the pipeline to attend that one school if they're applying REA. If it doesn't work out, they'll be able to apply a regular decision to some other places. Waitlist is a tool that many selective schools will use. You'll hear selective schools talk about shaping their class. They want to create incoming classes full of students from all over the country, all over the world, and who have varying interests. And so when a student applies and is waitlisted, it means that the school kind of wants to wait and see how the class shapes up to determine whether or not they want to offer admission to their school. It would be advantageous for you to encourage your student to talk to the institution where he or she is waitlisted. Some schools rank their waitlist and some don't. So finding out where you stack up on the waitlist could be helpful in framing your college search and decision-making process. Also, it's helpful sometimes to ask the school why, so that you know where to address a potential weak spot. So it might be that there was a weak grade in a math class, so they just want to see that you're bringing your calculus grade up a little bit, or it may be a test score, or they might just want to see that you come and visit their school. So asking those questions could be helpful in getting your student off the wait list and in the school of their dreams. And I'm going to pass it off to Brandi.
Thank you. So Catherine is going to stop sharing her screen, and I am going to now share my screen with you. Now we're going to talk about writing samples, which is very important to the selective college process for admission or even for scholarships. So by far, the essay is the highest non-academic tool used for colleges to make decisions about students, whether that be the essay to the university, the Mississippi State University for applying for engineering, or if it's your personal statement for Harvard. It is very important that students pay attention, that they intentionally write a good essay, and they proofread. Obviously have you, English teacher, parents, review those essays as they're submitted. It should be in the student's voice, so a nonfiction narrative. So I always tell students, don't make it up. But something interesting for us to note is a couple of years ago, a student went viral because she applied and was admitted to Yale University, and her essay was on her love of Papa John's pizza. She was also admitted to Auburn University and ultimately chose Auburn. But I think it's very interesting that we know how important the writing samples can be and how much weight the colleges put on them. I tell students that sometimes it's not what you write about, it's more important how you write it. And they should certainly pick something that they're passionate about and obviously follow the prompt. But when there is a general question about the student, they want to tell something that they haven't already told. Don't reinvent the wheel. Don't recite your resume. Don't tell them something they already know. They want to know the real you, the three-dimensional person, past your test scores and courses and resume. So students, I think, need to spend a good bit of time first determining what they need to write about. And then it's about crafting the essay, proofreading, and determining that the essay is written in their own voice. We have lots of resources on our website at gettocollege.org YouTube videos from Boston College that and Boston University that will help students and you to guide them in writing the essay that will ultimately make a difference in whether they are admitted or possibly receiving that scholarship. I tell students to start with a blank sheet and list 4 characteristics that they want that college to know about them. If they only had 4 things they could say, what would they say? And they need to use that to narrow down to get their topic for their essay. And their goal should not be for the college to read their essay. The goal should be for the college to finish their essay. So that's why it has to have a strong start. And I tell students, get right into it. Jump right into the story, then move through it, and then talk about the beyond, what's going to be in the future. Look forward and forecast in the end. So it's important for them to know that every single paragraph within that essay is important and that they can't waste time. They have to write simply and intelligently, but they also need to tell a story that explains their perspective and their passions. Last but certainly not least is the recommendations, the interviews, and then of course demonstrated interest. All of these can come into play when colleges are making a decision about a student. As guidance counselors, you may be asked to write recommendations. It's important for you to know whether the recommendation is being asked for a teacher recommendation or a guidance counselor recommendation. They are different. A teacher recommendation is expected to be about the academic, intellectual curiosity of the student, how the student is in the classroom, how he or she learns, how he or she contributes to the classroom dialogue. Whereas a guidance counselor recommendation is the holistic approach of the student. You should bring in the social aspect, the student's personality, intellectual curiosity, but their initiative and their passions. So from you, they're looking for a more holistic or well-rounded approach to the student. In many cases, the student may be interviewed, whether it's for elective college admissions or for a scholarship. Harvard interviews every single applicant. How do they do that? They use an alumni network. And in many cases, that's what colleges do. So students may be asked to meet with an alum at a local coffee shop. They may be asked to Skype or Zoom, as we're doing, virtually meet with an alum, or even have a phone interview. So that's definitely something that student should be prepared for, and they should practice. We also can help students in mock interviewing. It's important that the student knows that they can ask questions about their interview. How long will it be? Who will I be meeting with? Should I be prepared for any specific format? So make sure that the student knows that they can take initiative in this process. And that leads me right into demonstrated interest. Many schools consider the student's interest when either acceptance or scholarship opportunities. So demonstrated interest is basically that student showing initiative and interest in the school, whether that's calling and speaking to a counselor at the school, emailing and asking for information from a recruiter about the school, visiting that college, making a point to go to the recruiter and during a college fair and asking questions. So it is important that if a student is interested in a specific program or college, they need to make the initiative and they need to make sure that that college knows that they are interested, because it could make a tremendous difference in the decision the college makes, whether it be for admission or for scholarship. Now, let's talk a little bit about money. That can be different at many different schools. As Catherine alluded, several scholarships are awarded to selective college admissions processes, but not always. So it's important for your student to do that type of research and determine how do they award scholarships, what are they based on, What applications do I need to submit and by when? It's so important for them to know what the process is. And unfortunately, the process could be different at multiple schools that student is considering. By and far, we certainly hope that students file the FAFSA, every single student, whether they plan to attend a two-year community college or they plan to go out of state to a selective college. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It's the only way to receive grants, work-study, low-interest student loans to go to college. If you have a student that's looking at a selective school, they may be asked to complete the CSS Profile. That is a separate application. It's administered through the College Board, which you probably know through AP, the SAT, and PSAT. The CSS Profile is an application to apply for institutional need-based financial aid. So basically that is money directly from the college based on need. A lot of colleges do not only accept the FAFSA to determine need. They ask students to complete also the CSS Profile to determine need. And then, of course, we hope that all of your students apply to at least one state school, because we do have state grant here in Mississippi. They would have to apply separately for state financial aid. We have 3 different grants here in Mississippi that students can apply for, but they can only receive one. First is MTAG with a 15 on the ACT and a 2.5 GPA. Students can receive $500 a year their freshman and sophomore year, goes up to $1,000 their junior and senior year. MESG with a 29 on the ACT and a 3.5 GPA, students receive $2,500 a year. And then we have the most generous grant in the state of Mississippi, that's the HELP grant. With a 20 on the ACT, 2.5 GPA, a specific list of classes in high school, and demonstrated need, they can receive the HELP grant, full tuition and required fees at any public school in Mississippi. So we certainly hope that your students are keeping this in mind and applying to multiple schools and all of these applications so that in the end they can make an informed decision, not only about where they are admitted, but also what schools can they afford. Now, ultimately, when it comes to selective college admissions, there will be a deadline to accept. So if a student is admitted to a selective college, they have until May 1st to decide. But if that student has not applied for regular admission, the regular admission that Catherine was talking about, they will not be notified until April 1st. So that's why it's so important. She alluded to missing deadlines. And so that's why it's so important for students to apply to multiple schools, because they may not receive a decision from Vanderbilt if they applied regular decision until April 1st. And then they are given a month to determine whether to accept that admission or to decline it. And that gives them time to determine their financial aid packages from all the schools, what other opportunities they have received, and then they have to make a decision as to what's the best place for them to go to college. This wraps up our webinar. I thank you so much for attending today, and I can't thank Catherine enough for helping us with this webinar today. We miss you in Mississippi, Catherine.
Thanks for having me.
But I want to let you know, you can email me or Catherine if you have questions or concerns. We're happy to help you. Our information is on the screen. And I want to tell you a little bit more about our two-way text messaging. You can sign up at the bit.ly account I have on the screen to receive text messages from Get to College. This is not Remind 101. This is two-way text messaging. So when we send you a text message, you can reply back privately and we respond to only you. So this may be something that you are interested in. It's a quick way to ask a question and get advice. And I certainly hope that you'll join us with all these new virtual webinars that we're offering. We have 2 more this semester. We have preparing for graduation and transitioning into college. And we also have a junior jumpstart. So for those of you with juniors who are ready to go for senior year, we'll have a webinar for that as well. I thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and will contact us if Get to College can help you. Thank you.